It was supposed to be an ordinary night, the kind of night where the world felt quiet and peaceful. Most people were asleep, unaware that something far beyond their imagination was approaching Earth. At first, it began as a strange reading on a satellite monitor. A group of astronomers working the night shift noticed unusual signals deep in space, steady rhythmic pulses unlike anything they had seen before. They thought it might be a glitch. But when the pattern repeated again and again, they knew it was real. The signals weren't coming from stars or asteroids. They were coming from something moving, something fast, something big. Within hours, observatories across different countries started reporting the same thing. Unknown objects were approaching the solar system, traveling faster than any known spacecraft. At first, the experts estimated it might be space debris or natural phenomena. But as calculations grew more precise, it became clear. These were not random rocks or meteors. They were moving in perfect formation, hundreds of them. The world didn't know it yet, but fleets, massive fleets, were on their way to Earth. In the control rooms, voices trembled. Scientists tried to remain calm as they shared data with world governments. The numbers made no sense. The speed, the size, the coordination, it all pointed to something intelligent, something organized. When the news finally reached the public, confusion turned into fear. Some thought it was a hoax. Others said it was a sign of the end. And while governments tried to calm people, deep inside even the leaders were terrified. The next day, the world's skies filled with tension. The objects slowed down as they entered the outer edge of the solar system. Telescopes captured faint images, enormous dark shapes gliding silently through the void. They didn't resemble any known spacecraft. Some were longer than mountains, others as wide as entire cities. The military command centers of every nation went on high alert. Communication satellites were realigned. Fighter squadrons were put on standby. Every space agency around the planet was told to prepare for unidentified contact. The objects kept coming closer. People began to gather outside, looking up at the night sky. News channels broadcast constant updates. In some cities, the streets were quiet. In others, people prayed, hugged, or stared at the stars with disbelief. Everyone asked the same question: what do they want? Then it happened. For the first time in human history, the fleet entered Earth's orbit. The entire planet watched in silence as the skies darkened. The largest of the objects stopped above the atmosphere, hovering silently, its shadow stretching across oceans and continents. Dozens of smaller ones positioned themselves above major cities. Their movements were slow and deliberate, as if they were studying the planet below. No explosions. No laser beams. No attacks. Just presence. Powerful and unnerving. From space, satellites showed that the ships formed a symmetrical pattern across Earth. Every nation tried to open communication, but there was no reply. The signals sent by radio, laser, and even quantum encryption bounced back unanswered. It was as if these beings were watching, but not speaking. Within hours, fear started to take hold. People locked themselves in their homes. Governments called for emergency meetings. The United Nations held its largest emergency session in history, and for the first time, every nation on Earth agreed on one thing: the planet had to stand united. In newsrooms, anchors spoke carefully, trying to keep people calm. They repeated the words "remain indoors" and await official updates. Yet no one could look away from the skies. Those who lived near coastlines or mountains saw strange shimmering lights at night. Some described faint hums, almost like deep metallic breathing, coming from the sky. Every military radar on Earth pointed upward. Fighter jets circled. Missiles were loaded but not fired. The order was simple: do not provoke them. But the tension was unbearable. In one moment of eerie stillness, the largest ship, the one floating above the Atlantic, shifted slightly. Its movement was smooth, graceful, yet carried unimaginable power. Then a deep vibration swept through the air, shaking windows and setting off car alarms. People covered their ears, terrified. A signal was coming through. All over the world, radio frequencies began to pick up a strange, repeating sound. It wasn't language. It wasn't music. It was a pulse, slow, rhythmic, echoing like a heartbeat. For days, scientists tried to decode it. They analyzed the frequencies, searching for patterns or meaning. Some believed it was communication. Others thought it was a warning. And yet, no matter how much they studied it, they couldn't find an answer. The message repeated endlessly. Every few hours, always the same tone, the same pattern, never changing. The ships remained still, unresponsive to every attempt at contact. Humanity was stuck between fear and fascination. Nobody knew if the invaders were preparing to strike or simply observing. The world economy froze. Airlines grounded their fleets and the skies became a forbidden zone. Weeks passed and no progress was made. The fleets didn't attack, didn't move, didn't retreat. They simply existed, watching silently from the edge of the sky. Then something unexpected began to happen. Electrical systems started behaving strangely. Satellites malfunctioned. Compass needles pointed the wrong direction. Some places on Earth experienced magnetic storms unlike any in recorded history. The air around certain cities felt heavy, almost charged with invisible energy. Some people claimed to have dreams, vivid, haunting dreams of glowing eyes and unknown worlds. Others said they heard whispers in the night, voices calling them to look up. Scientists dismissed it as psychological stress, but deep down, everyone knew something was not right. Late one evening, as the world watched the live feeds of the stationary fleets, a smaller craft separated from the main group. It descended slowly into Earth's atmosphere, glowing faintly like a falling star. Panic erupted once again. Air defense systems tracked it, but it moved with impossible speed and precision. Within seconds, it vanished from radar. People expected destruction, but nothing happened. No explosion, no damage, only silence. Hours later, all power in several major cities flickered off for a few seconds and then came back. When scientists checked their instruments, they discovered something shocking. During the blackout, every satellite orbiting the Earth had recorded the same phenomenon. A huge energy wave had passed through the planet's magnetic field, centered exactly where the alien craft had disappeared. Whatever these visitors were doing, it wasn't random. It was deliberate. As the world tried to understand the meaning behind it, rumors started spreading. Rumors that deep in classified communication networks, governments had found fragments of the alien signals that suggested a countdown. Nobody knew what the countdown was for, but every time the mysterious pulse played again, the numbers seemed to change slightly. By now, the people of Earth were exhausted. Fear had turned into numbness. The skies remained filled with massive silent shapes, and the sun often vanished behind their shadows. Humanity felt small, fragile, unsure of what the next moment would bring. The only thing everyone agreed on was that Earth had never felt so united, or so helpless. In the following days, a strange calm took over the planet. There were no attacks, no more movements, just the silent fleet watching from above. But deep down, people felt that something bigger was coming, a feeling that this was only the beginning. The strange fleet still hovered above Earth. Days had turned into weeks, and the world was living under a shadow that refused to move. The ships were silent, perfectly still, like dark clouds that never drifted away. People had learned to live with fear in the background, like a sound you stop noticing after hearing it for too long. Every morning began with the same sight, the enormous black silhouettes floating high above the clouds, blocking the sunlight in some regions. Farmers said their crops were failing because of the lack of light. Cities ran on emergency power to keep communication alive. The skies no longer looked blue. They looked cold, distant, and heavy with something unknown. Governments all over the world tried to reach out again and again. Every day they sent signals, lights, sound waves, and even mathematical messages in hopes that whoever or whatever was up there would understand. But no response ever came. The fleets remained silent. Inside laboratories, scientists were restless. They worked day and night trying to decode the strange pulse the ships had sent earlier, the rhythmic sound that echoed like a heartbeat across the radio waves. Some believed it was a language. Others thought it was a countdown. And some whispered that it was a test, something that measured the planet's reaction. People started calling it the Watch. They believed the ships were watching humanity, studying everything, waiting for something. Meanwhile, life on Earth was changing. The internet became slower, as global networks were monitored closely. News channels repeated the same question every hour: what do they want? And though world leaders stood together on television promising safety and control, their faces showed fear they could not hide. One night, something unexpected happened. The largest of the alien ships, the one floating above the ocean, suddenly glowed faintly. The light was not bright, but it spread across the sky like a soft wave. The sea below reflected it, creating an endless mirror of silver and blue. People living near the coast watched in awe. For a moment it felt beautiful, peaceful even, but that peace lasted only minutes. Suddenly every electronic device in a 1,000-mile radius flickered off. Phones, radios, even airplanes. The world went dark. The lights returned a few minutes later, but the incident left everyone shaken. What was that energy surge? What did it mean? Scientists called it a magnetic pulse, something similar to what happens when the sun releases a solar flare. But this was far more controlled, more focused, as if someone had switched the world off and on just to see what would happen. After that event, strange phenomena started to appear all over the world. Birds changed their flight patterns. Whales swam toward shallow waters as if confused by unseen sounds. Compasses spun randomly in some places, while in others time-measuring satellites began showing slight delays. It felt like the planet itself was reacting. Despite the fear, people couldn't look away. The sight of the massive fleets floating in silence had become part of life. Some people prayed to them, believing they were divine beings. Others cursed them, calling them invaders who would destroy everything. But no one could deny that they had changed how humanity saw itself. For the first time in history, people stopped fighting each other. Borders became meaningless when everyone shared the same sky filled with unknown visitors. Countries began working together, sharing data, building defense plans, and uniting resources. The world had never been this united before, but that unity was built on fear. High above the clouds, the fleets began to shift slowly. Their formations changed, almost like they were moving into position. Satellite footage showed the ships aligning in perfect patterns, circles, lines, and strange geometrical designs that no human mathematician could explain. The pattern stretched across continents, from one side of the planet to the other. It was precise, flawless. Some experts said it looked like a map or a message written across the sky. Tension grew heavier with every hour. Military forces were told to stay ready. Earth's most advanced warships were deployed near space. Yet no one dared to attack. Nobody wanted to start something that could end the world. People stopped sleeping. News channels stayed live 24 hours a day. Every move the fleets made was recorded, analyzed, and discussed endlessly. The world waited, helpless and curious. Then came the first real sign of communication. It happened when one of the smaller alien crafts descended closer to Earth's atmosphere. For the first time, its surface opened slightly, revealing bright lights moving like flowing water. From those lights came a new sound, soft, melodic, and strangely emotional. It wasn't like any known signal. It sounded almost human. The sound repeated for several minutes before stopping. And when it ended, the skies went completely silent again. All around the world, scientists rushed to capture and study the audio. They ran tests looking for hidden codes or messages. After hours of decoding, they discovered something astonishing. The frequency of the sound matched the vibrations of Earth's magnetic field. Whatever was communicating wasn't just speaking to humans, it was speaking to the planet itself. This discovery changed everything. Maybe the visitors weren't trying to attack. Maybe they were trying to communicate in a way humanity couldn't yet understand. But not everyone believed that. Some governments thought it was a distraction, a psychological trick before a real invasion. Others said it was a warning. Military fleets stayed armed and ready, but every time they pointed weapons at the sky, strange interference scrambled their systems. It was as if the visitors didn't allow violence near them. Days passed and tension reached its peak. Then, without warning, the largest ship released a faint beam of light that touched the ocean surface. The beam wasn't destructive, it was gentle and smooth. When it faded, it left behind a strange circular pattern in the water that glowed for hours. Cameras from satellites and ships captured it clearly. The pattern wasn't random. It looked like symbols, shapes, and mathematical lines that repeated in perfect loops. Theories flooded the world. Some believed the ships were marking something, maybe claiming territory, maybe trying to write something humans couldn't read. Others said it was an experiment. The mystery grew deeper. The next morning, scientists made another shocking discovery. The global magnetic field, the invisible energy that protects Earth from solar radiation, had strengthened slightly overnight. It was as if something had repaired it. Could the visitors have done that? Were they trying to fix the planet rather than harm it? The world didn't know what to believe anymore. People began to see them differently. Fear turned into confusion. Some even began to admire their quiet strength, their patience, their power. Humanity realized that compared to these silent travelers, it was still young, still learning. But despite that glimmer of hope, there was something unsettling. The fleets began to pulse faintly, as if charging energy or preparing for the next phase of their plan. The rhythmic heartbeat sound returned, slower this time, deeper, echoing across every radio frequency. Scientists tried once again to decode it, and this time, they discovered that the intervals between the pulses were changing. Slowly, steadily, the gaps between each beat were getting shorter. It was a countdown. Nobody knew what it was counting toward. Governments held emergency meetings. Space defense units went on full alert. Humanity had only one question left. What happens when the countdown ends? In the final moments of that long night, while people stared at the skies and waited for answers, something incredible happened. The clouds above the largest ship began to glow, not with fire or thunder, but with soft, shimmering light. The fleet pulsed one last time, brighter than before, and then stopped completely. The countdown ended, but instead of an explosion or attack, everything fell into silence. The ships remained still, glowing faintly like stars that refused to fade. For now, they had done nothing, but everyone could feel it deep inside. The real story hadn't even started yet. Something was coming, and the world would never be the same again. The strange countdown had ended, but the fear didn't fade. Instead, it grew heavier, like a silence before a storm. The fleet still hovered in the sky, unchanged, yet somehow different. Their lights pulsed faintly, as if something deep inside them had awakened. People waited for the next move. Hours passed. Days passed. Nothing happened. But that quiet was not peace. It was the kind of quiet that made every heart beat faster, wondering what would come next. The world's scientists worked without rest, scanning every possible signal, every vibration, every movement in the sky. But the readings made no sense. The energy coming from the ships had increased slightly, but there was no sign of attack. It felt like they were building something invisible to the human eye. One thing became clear. The fleets were not here by mistake. They had a purpose, to prepare for whatever might happen. World leaders agreed to activate a secret global defense project known only to a few, Project Aegis. It had been developed quietly over years, hidden from the public. Its goal was simple: to create technology capable of protecting Earth from any threat beyond its atmosphere. Scientists from different nations joined hands. They shared knowledge that had never been shared before. Old rivalries were forgotten. Engineers, physicists, and pilots from every corner of the planet came together, working in underground bases and hidden labs. For the first time in human history, the world wasn't divided by borders. It was united by survival. Using technology recovered from past mysterious crashes, strange materials that no one had been able to explain, they built something new. The design was unlike any human machine. It was part metal, part energy. A ship powered by plasma cores and surrounded by magnetic shields that could resist almost anything. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a message. A message that Earth would no longer be helpless. While all this happened, ordinary people on the surface watched the skies with a mix of hope and fear. Children asked questions adults couldn't answer. Farmers worked under strange light. Fishermen saw the reflections of the fleets in their waters at night and said it felt like the ocean itself was holding its breath. The Earth had become quiet, but it was not calm. Something was building, both in the sky and inside the hearts of its people. Months passed, and Project Aegis was almost ready. The scientists had managed to create not one, but several defense ships, each designed to withstand extreme energy. These ships were unlike anything ever built on Earth. They moved without sound, powered by light itself. They were humanity's last line of defense, but deep down, most people wished they'd never have to use them. Then, one night, something unexpected occurred again. For the first time since their arrival, one of the alien fleets broke formation. It drifted slowly toward the moon. The movement was smooth, silent, and precise. Cameras on satellites captured every second of it. The world watched in silence as the enormous ship came to a stop above the moon's surface. A thin beam of light reached down from its core, touching the lunar ground. Within minutes, the moon's surface began to glow faintly. forming circular shapes visible even from Earth. What were they doing? Were they building something? Sending a signal? Or marking territory? Every expert tried to understand. No answer made sense. Then the fleets above Earth reacted too. One by one, they shifted their position, aligning perfectly with the glowing marks on the moon. It looked like a pattern, a design too complex to be random. When scientists drew the pattern on their maps, it resembled something extraordinary, a network surrounding Earth and the moon together, connected by invisible lines of energy. It wasn't just a formation. It was a structure, a giant energy web around the planet. People began to panic again. Some believed it was a trap, a way to block sunlight or control the atmosphere. Others thought it was protection, like a shield being built to defend Earth from something else. For the first time, even world leaders didn't know what to believe. In underground control rooms, the new human defense ships of Project Aegis stood ready. Their pilots sat in silence, waiting for the order that everyone prayed would never come. Suddenly, every communication satellite picked up something strange. A new signal. It wasn't the same rhythmic pulse as before. This one was softer, smoother, almost like a voice trying to speak through a storm. The frequency was hard to hear, but when scientists slowed it down, they realized something unbelievable. Hidden deep inside the signal were human patterns, echoes of Earth's own radio broadcasts from decades ago. Old transmissions, old songs, old voices. The aliens were repeating back Earth's own messages. It was as if they were saying, "We've been listening." The discovery spread hope and fear at the same time. Were they trying to communicate by mimicking humanity, or were they just showing that they knew everything? Every sound, every language, every secret. The world fell into deep silence again. Meanwhile, the strange energy network around the Earth continued to grow. Scientists noticed that the planet's magnetic field, which had been unstable for years, was suddenly becoming stronger and more balanced. Storms were less severe. The weather patterns calmed slightly. Even the northern lights began to glow brighter than before. Could it be that the fleets were repairing something instead of destroying it? That question changed everything. For the first time, the fear began to fade a little. Some people started to believe that maybe the visitors weren't enemies. They were helpers from far away. But not everyone agreed. Some leaders still warned that trusting unknown forces was dangerous. They feared it was all part of a bigger plan, something that would make Earth dependent or weak before the real invasion began. So they continued strengthening the Aegis ships, preparing for the worst. As days turned into nights, humanity lived between two emotions, fear and faith. The skies glowed faintly with the energy of the alien fleets, and the oceans reflected their light like mirrors. Then came the day no one would ever forget. Without warning, all the ships in the alien fleet began to vibrate softly. Lights rippled across their surfaces, changing colors in slow, breathtaking waves. The sound returned, the heartbeat like pulse louder than ever before. But this time it wasn't chaotic. It was calm, steady, almost peaceful. Every screen, every radar, every frequency picked up the same rhythm. Even deep underground, people could feel it through the walls, through the air. It wasn't sound. It was vibration, like the planet itself was responding. And then something incredible happened. From the center of the largest ship, a beam of light shot into space, disappearing beyond the solar system. A few seconds later, sensors detected something enormous approaching from deep space, something far beyond the alien fleets. It wasn't another fleet. It wasn't a planet. It was a huge wave of radiation and energy, storm moving straight toward Earth at unimaginable speed. That's when people finally understood the alien fleets weren't here to attack Earth. They were here to protect it. The network they built wasn't a trap, it was a shield. As the energy wave approached, the fleets began to align perfectly around the planet. The pulse grew louder, matching the rhythm of the storm. Then, as the wave reached the edge of the atmosphere, the fleets released a blinding flash of light that wrapped the planet in a glowing web. The radiation storm hit, but not a single city was harmed. The light absorbed everything. For a few moments, the entire sky shined like gold. Then slowly the glow faded. The wave was gone. The Earth was safe. But when the light disappeared completely, something strange followed. The fleets that had protected Earth were no longer there. They had vanished. All of them. No explosion, no debris, no trace. They came to defend Earth from a cosmic disaster no one even knew existed. And then, just like that, they disappeared without a word. The world stood silent once again, staring at the empty skies where those mysterious guardians once floated. And while scientists searched for answers and governments tried to explain it, one truth remained. Humanity had seen something far greater than itself. The visitors had come not to conquer but to protect, and now they were gone. Yet deep in space, far beyond the reach of human eyes, some believed the fleets were still there, watching quietly, waiting for the day Earth might need them again. For days after the Great Flash, the world stood in silence. The skies were clear again. The dark fleets that had covered the stars for months were gone, completely gone. No sound, no trace, not even a single particle floating in the air. It was as if they had been erased from existence. At first, people couldn't believe it. Some thought it was a trick, that maybe the ships were cloaked or hiding behind the clouds. Telescopes turned to the skies. Satellites scanned every inch of space. Radar systems searched endlessly, but nothing appeared. The invaders, those mysterious fleets that had arrived with so much fear and power, had simply vanished. For the first time in months, sunlight touched the earth without any shadows above it. People came out of their homes and looked up, amazed to see the sky the way it used to be, bright, blue, and peaceful. But the feeling wasn't peace. It was confusion. What had just happened? Why did they come? And why did they leave? News channels called it the Great Vanishing. Scientists gave endless interviews, but none of them had answers. Some said it was all part of a natural event, that the fleets had used some unknown technology that caused them to phase out of sight. Others said they were never ships at all, but living energy forms that completed their task and disappeared back into space. Still, there were many who believed something else entirely. They believed the fleets came to save Earth from a disaster, something that humanity didn't even know was coming. And the more scientists studied the planet's energy readings, the more that theory started to make sense. Every sensor, every satellite, every radar confirmed the same strange fact. The radiation storm that had been racing toward Earth had completely vanished. It didn't just pass by, it was neutralized, dissolved as if it had never existed. Yet what puzzled scientists most was this. The energy wave wasn't detected by any observatory before it arrived. It was discovered only when it was seconds away from the planet. It was almost as if the fleets had known about it long before humanity did. How could they have known? And why risk everything to stop it? Around the world, people reacted differently. Some celebrated, believing that humanity had been protected by higher beings. Others were uneasy, feeling that the sudden disappearance was a warning, not a blessing. The world slowly began to recover. With the skies clear, flights resumed, factories restarted, and cities began to light up again. But there was a new kind of silence, one that came not from fear, but from realization. Humanity had been watched, and for the first time, people truly understood how small their world really was in the endless universe. Governments ordered teams to analyze every piece of data from the event. Hundreds of scientists were assigned to search for any sign, any trace of the fleets. But when they reviewed the satellite recordings, something unusual was discovered. Just before the fleets vanished, every camera and every radar across the planet had glitched for exactly 3.6 seconds. In that tiny window of time, no image, no sound, no reading existed. It was as if reality itself had been paused. When the systems came back online, the skies were empty. What happened during those 3.6 seconds became the biggest mystery. In modern history, no one could explain it. Some researchers believed that the fleets didn't disappear, they transitioned. They might have moved into another dimension or frequency of existence. Others thought they used Earth's magnetic field to launch themselves across space instantly. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. Earth had survived something that could have wiped it out, and now, humanity had to figure out why. A few weeks later, strange reports started to come in. Deep space telescopes began detecting faint distortions at the edge of the solar system, tiny flashes of light, like distant ripples. The same kind of energy the fleets once emitted was appearing again, but far away. At first, scientists thought it was just leftover radiation, but the patterns of light were too precise, too rhythmic, almost like a code repeating in the darkness. The same pulse, the same heartbeat-like rhythm that had been heard before the fleets disappeared. People were both terrified and fascinated. It meant the fleets were still out there. Somewhere in the deep silence of space, they were alive, watching. Back on Earth, something else began to happen. Several satellites recorded small bursts of light appearing over the poles. These flashes were invisible to the naked eye but showed up clearly on instruments. They were identical to the signals used by the fleets before they vanished. And they came from Earth's atmosphere, not from space. It was as if something had been left behind, something hidden, waiting to awaken. Soon, researchers discovered faint energy readings deep underground, near the magnetic poles, the same kind of energy that the alien fleets had used. It seemed that whatever technology they had, a trace of it now lived beneath the planet's surface. Teams were sent to study it, but they couldn't reach the source. The energy was buried too deep, deeper than any human machine could dig. It was like the Earth itself was protecting it. Some believed it was a gift. Others feared it was a seed, a part of their technology that might grow or activate someday. As time passed, people began to notice subtle changes around the planet. The weather became more stable. The air seemed cleaner. Natural disasters, which had been increasing for decades, suddenly decreased. It was as if the planet itself was healing. Could it be that the fleets didn't just protect Earth? They repaired it? This idea brought hope to many. Across the world, new organizations formed dedicated to studying what they called the visitor's legacy. Scientists, spiritual thinkers, and engineers worked together, trying to understand the unseen changes the event had caused. But while the surface of the planet felt calmer, strange things began to happen in space. Space probes that were sent beyond the orbit of Mars started disappearing one after another. No signal, no trace, just silence. When the data from the last probe was analyzed, it showed something extraordinary. Just before losing contact, it recorded a vast, moving shadow, larger than any planet, slowly drifting beyond the solar system's edge. It looked almost like one of the alien ships. Had one of them stayed behind to guard the system? Or was something else moving out there, something even larger? No one could say for sure. The world was torn between fear and wonder once again, but unlike before, the fear was mixed with gratitude. People had seen that the fleets had not harmed them. Whatever their reasons, they had saved Earth. Still, deep down, humanity understood one simple truth. Whoever they were far beyond human understanding. Weeks turned into months and life began to return to normal. But normal no longer felt the same. Every night, people looked at the stars a little longer, wondering if the watchers were still out there. Then, one night, astronomers spotted something new. Tiny lights, arranged in the same pattern the alien fleets once used, blinking faintly in a distant part of the sky. The pattern repeated twice, then disappeared. It was brief, but it was enough to send a chill down every scientist's spine. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. It was a sign. The fleets were still alive, and maybe, just maybe, they were saying goodbye, or promising that one day, when the planet faced danger again, they would return. Whatever the truth was, Earth would never forget that moment in history. The day the invaders came to conquer, yet left as protectors. The day the skies turned golden. The day humanity realized it was not alone. And even now, as people walk under the clear blue sky once more, the faint sound of that mysterious heartbeat still echoes faintly through radio waves. Soft, distant, but unmistakably alive. It's as if the universe itself remembers. And somewhere out there, beyond the edge of light, the silent fleets continue their endless watch, waiting for the next time Earth will need them again. Months had passed since the fleets vanished, but the world still couldn't move on completely. People had gone back to their jobs, schools reopened, and cities began to glow again at night. Yet deep down, everyone felt something had changed forever. The skies looked the same, but they didn't feel the same. It was as if the atmosphere itself carried an invisible memory, something too big for the human mind to understand. Every time someone looked up, they couldn't help but wonder, were the fleets still watching? Governments around the world had stopped denying what had happened. The event had been too large to hide. The fleet's sudden appearance and disappearance had been witnessed by billions and captured by every camera and satellite possible. There was no way to erase it. Still, no one knew why it had happened. Why Earth? Why now? In one of the major research stations in Asia, A group of scientists had been working non-stop since the event. They had built a special observatory, a massive ring of sensors connected to satellites, to detect any trace of the strange energy that had surrounded the planet that day. Then, one morning something unexpected happened. At exactly 4:17 a.m., one of the sensors detected a faint pulse, the same kind of frequency the fleets had used before they disappeared. It was weak, but it was there. The signal repeated every few minutes, soft and rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. At first, the scientists thought it was a malfunction. But when other observatories around the world picked up the same signal, they knew it was real. The energy was coming from deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Immediately, research vessels were sent to investigate. They carried sonar, drones, and underwater scanners. As they reached the location, something strange happened again. All the instruments started to glitch. The deeper they tried to scan, the more interference they faced. It was as if something down there was protecting itself, and then, suddenly, the sea became calm. The readings stopped fluctuating. For about 10 minutes, the ocean was perfectly still. Not a single wave moved. Then the instruments came back online, and what they found shocked everyone. A massive structure was buried deep under the ocean floor. It wasn't natural. The shape was too perfect, too symmetrical. It looked like a huge circular dome, made of an unknown material that reflected sonar waves in unusual ways. The scientists realized it was the same energy pattern the alien fleets had used. But this time, it was coming from Earth's own ocean. People around the world soon learned about it. The news spread like wildfire. Some said it was a leftover ship from the fleets, left behind intentionally. Others believed it was a message, or even a gate to somewhere else. The governments tried to keep the details secret, but leaks began appearing online. Video clips, sonar images, even short recordings of the strange sounds that came from the deep. The whole world was fascinated again. For days, ships circled the area trying to get closer. But every time they approached too much, their engines and electronics would shut down. It was like the sea itself was warning them to stay away. In one recording from a deep-sea drone, something even stranger was captured. Faint glowing lines beneath the waves like patterns etched into the ocean floor. They moved slowly, pulsing in the same rhythm as the fleet's old signals. It looked like something sleeping. Weeks passed, and the signals continued. But instead of growing stronger, they began to fade. By the end of the month, they had almost vanished completely. Then one night, the signal stopped altogether. For a while, people thought it was over. Maybe whatever was down there had shut down or finished its task. The world returned to normal once again. But normal didn't last long. A few weeks later, new data from satellites showed that Earth's magnetic field had shifted slightly. Not dangerously, but enough to cause confusion among scientists. They couldn't explain it. The only area that showed abnormal energy was the exact same spot in the Pacific Ocean where the signals had appeared. It was like something deep below had turned itself on again. Quietly this time, and in different parts of the world, people began reporting strange natural lights in the sky, gentle waves of color like auroras, appearing even in places where they never used to. The lights weren't harmful and they didn't cause any damage. In fact, they often appeared right before storms, calming them down, dispersing dangerous weather patterns. People started calling them the Guardian's Lights. Many believed the fleets had left behind a system, a kind of defense mechanism to protect Earth from natural or cosmic dangers. It wasn't visible, but it worked silently, balancing the planet's systems. While the world was amazed by these new events, a few scientists still felt uneasy. They wondered if humanity truly understood what was happening. What if this system had a purpose beyond their imagination? What if Earth had become part of something much larger, something not entirely human? Months later, an international expedition was formed to finally reach the mysterious structure under the ocean. The best minds, engineers, and explorers joined together. They built a new kind of submersible made of advanced material to withstand the strange interference. When they finally reached the location, the ocean floor glowed faintly, like a sleeping giant. The dome was there, enormous, smooth, and untouched. No rust, no cracks, no signs of age. As the team got closer, they noticed a small symbol etched on its surface, a perfect circle surrounded by 3 lines, glowing faintly with blue light. The moment their camera focused on it, The submersible's lights flickered, and for a brief moment, all the communication systems went silent. Then, a low sound echoed through the ocean, deep and soft, almost like a voice. No one could understand it, but it didn't feel threatening. It felt calm, gentle, almost alive. When they returned to the surface, every instrument that recorded the sound showed the same strange thing. The sound wave formed the shape of Earth's magnetic field. It was as if the dome was showing them that it understood the planet better than humans did. The footage was shown secretly to world leaders, but eventually parts of it were leaked online. The world watched in awe. Many said the fleets hadn't left Earth at all. They had simply gone beneath it. Some believed they left behind a seed, a living core that would continue their work protecting the planet. Whatever it was, humanity realized that this was no longer just a story of survival. It was a story of connection. The fleets hadn't come to destroy. They had come to prepare Earth for something humanity still couldn't see. The following weeks brought more surprises. Satellites detected several objects leaving the solar system, moving slowly, glowing faintly. They were small compared to the original fleets, but they emitted the same energy pattern. It was as if fragments of the fleets were departing, heading back into the universe. Maybe they had completed their mission. Maybe they were returning home. As they drifted away, the auroras in the sky grew stronger for one last time. The lights covered the Earth in soft blue and gold hues, shining across oceans, cities, and mountains. People everywhere stood in silence watching the sky together. It felt like a farewell. Children pointed up, families gathered on rooftops, and even scientists stopped their work to simply watch. The skies glowed brighter than ever before, and for that one night humanity forgot all its divisions, wars, and worries. Everyone was united under the same light. Then just as gently as they appeared, the lights faded, and the skies became calm once more. But something inside humanity had changed. They were no longer afraid of the unknown. The fleets had shown them that not everything beyond the stars was dangerous. Some things perhaps were watching over them, not as enemies but as guardians. The ocean dome remained silent and mysterious. Scientists continued to study it, but it never activated again. Still, they could feel a faint pulse whenever they came near it, a reminder that something was still alive down there. The world began to move forward with a new sense of purpose. Space programs grew rapidly. Humanity was no longer afraid to reach for the stars. They wanted to explore, to learn, to understand the universe that had once reached out to them first. And somewhere deep in space, beyond the last traces of light, perhaps those same fleets watched one last time, proud, silent, and unseen. Maybe they had realized that Earth was ready now, ready to stand, ready to grow, and ready to one day join the stars among them. The silence they left behind was not empty. It was full of hope, full of curiosity, full of the promise that one day the skies would light up again, and humanity would be ready to answer. Years had passed since the fleets vanished and the ocean dome was found. The world had changed slowly but surely. Technology had advanced faster than ever. Countries began to work together, inspired by the idea that humanity was being watched by something greater, something that wanted them to survive. The skies had been calm ever since. No strange lights, no energy pulses, no unknown signals, yet people never stopped watching. Every night, telescopes and satellites scanned the heavens, waiting for even the faintest sign of the fleets that once came to Earth. But as time passed, some began to believe that they would never return, and maybe that was the point. For years, scientists had been studying the strange changes happening on Earth. The planet's magnetic field had become more stable. Storms were fewer. The air was cleaner. Crops grew stronger, even in places that used to be barren. It was as if Earth itself had been renewed. No one could fully explain it, but deep down, people began to accept that the fleets hadn't just come to save humanity. They had come to reset something, to give the planet a second chance. One evening, in a quiet observatory high in the mountains, a small group of researchers were reviewing data from a deep space telescope. The night was calm. The stars looked normal. Then suddenly one of the instruments picked up something strange, a slow, rhythmic pulse, the same kind that had been detected years ago when the fleets vanished. It was faint, barely noticeable but unmistakable. At first, They thought it was a reflection from a distant star, but when they calculated its distance, their hearts stopped. The signal wasn't coming from space, it was coming from the moon. Immediately, observatories across the world turned their instruments toward the lunar surface. They scanned every crater, every shadow, and then in the sea of tranquility they found it, a small, glowing pattern on the moon's surface. It wasn't there before. The pattern was the same symbol that had been seen on the dome deep beneath the ocean, a perfect circle surrounded by 3 lines. It pulsed gently, glowing in soft blue light, visible even through telescopes. When the news broke, the world went silent. People gathered outside at night to see it for themselves. And indeed, when the moon rose, the symbol could be seen faintly with the naked eye like a gentle scar of light on the surface. What did it mean? Some believed it was a sign of return. Others said it was a message, a final mark left for humanity to find. Governments sent probes immediately, and within days, high-definition images confirmed what people had already guessed. The light wasn't just a reflection, it was energy, real energy, the same kind the fleets had used before disappearing. It was like the moon itself had been turned into a signal tower, transmitting something across space. But who was listening? Days later, the first signs appeared in the night sky again. Tiny lights, too small to be stars, blinking in rhythmic patterns. The same formation the fleets once used when they surrounded Earth. But this time they weren't closing in. They stayed far, almost at the edge of the solar system, shining gently like lanterns in the dark. Scientists studied the data closely. The light patterns weren't random. When translated into binary signals, they formed repeating sequences, numbers that matched coordinates in deep space. It was as if the fleets were leaving behind a map of where they came from. The revelation shook the world. Humanity realized that the fleets weren't gone. They had only stepped beyond their reach. And now they were calling Earth to follow. For the first time in history, every major nation united to build a single mission. A ship designed not for war, but for peace and discovery. The mission was called the Reach. The idea was simple: follow the coordinates, follow the light, and see where it leads. It took nearly 10 years to complete. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever built before. It used clean, renewable energy, some of it inspired by the strange readings found near the ocean dome. Every scientist, engineer, and dreamer worked together to create something that could travel beyond the stars. When launch day came, billions of people around the world watched live. The sky was clear, and as the ship slowly rose through the atmosphere, the whole planet seemed to hold its breath. Everyone knew this was more than just a mission. It was humanity's answer to the message left by the fleets. As the ship entered space, the glowing symbol on the moon pulsed one last time, brighter than ever. The same heartbeat-like rhythm that had once filled the skies echoed again through the instruments. Then slowly it faded, leaving the moon calm and quiet once more. It felt like a blessing. Months passed as the ship traveled through space. The crew reported seeing strange lights in the distance, small flickering trails that seemed to move ahead of them, almost like guiding stars. Each time they followed, they found themselves on the correct course. It was as if someone, or something, was leading them. After a long journey, they reached the edge of the coordinates. There in the silent darkness, they found something extraordinary, a huge structure floating among the stars. It wasn't a planet, and it wasn't a ship in the way humans understood ships. It looked like a vast ring made of light and metal, with patterns glowing across its surface. When the human ship approached, the patterns began to shift. The same symbol and the circle and 3 lines appeared again. And then the entire structure began to hum softly, resonating like a living thing. The crew could feel the vibrations through the ship, not loud, but warm and gentle. It was the same feeling Earth had experienced years ago when the fleets disappeared. A calm voice, not through words but through emotion, seemed to fill the space. It wasn't asking for anything. It wasn't warning or commanding. It was simply welcoming. It felt like the fleets had been waiting all along. Data showed that the structure wasn't just energy. It was alive in some way. It pulsed in harmony with the energy of the ship, as if recognizing it. The ship's systems recorded a massive energy surge, and for a moment every display glowed white. Then, just as quickly as it began, the light faded, and when the crew looked outside, they saw something that took their breath away. Stars, thousands of them, but not the same ones they had left behind. It was a new region of the galaxy, full of light, color, and beauty. The structure had opened a passage. The fleets were there, dozens of them, the same shining ships that once covered Earth's skies, now rested peacefully around a golden planet. They weren't preparing for battle. They were calm, silent, almost like guardians watching over something precious. One of the fleets emitted a single pulse of light toward the human ship. It wasn't a message in words, but it was clear. They were not enemies. They were teachers. The fleets had shown Earth how to survive, how to grow, and now, how to find them again. Humanity realized that they were never meant to conquer or control. They had only come to ensure that Earth would live long enough to reach this moment, the moment it would take its first step into the wider universe. Back on Earth, people watched as transmissions came through. The images of the shining fleets and the glowing golden world filled every screen. Children smiled, old people cried, and everyone felt the same thing, and pride, awe, and peace. Humanity had done it. They had turned fear into discovery, war into wonder, and isolation into connection. The fleets that once terrified them had become symbols of hope, a reminder that not everything unknown is dangerous. Sometimes it's just waiting for you to be ready. And as the human ship floated near the fleets, the same rhythmic pulse that once echoed across the skies began again. Heartbeat, silence, heartbeat. The same sound that had once protected Earth now resonated across the stars. The crew looked out at the golden world ahead. A new beginning. A sign that the universe still held many secrets to uncover. And far away, across light years of silence, Earth continued to glow blue and bright. No longer just a lonely planet in space, but a part of something greater, something alive, connected, and endless. The fleets had come once as conquerors, then as saviors, and finally on Tuna's guides. Their mission was complete, and humanity, at last, had found its place among the stars.